such a fast-paced technology such as blockchain will always be in front of regulations. It will move much faster than any regulators can spend the time to learn this industry. Although it's a very boring aspect, it's very important. The company I represent is an investment fund based in London. And we are welcoming regulation because with regulation we can have institutional investors. At the moment, the majority of investors within crypto is retail, normal individual investors who are investing their own funds, but we want the pension funds, we want the sovereign wealth funds to step in the game and start investing because they are the ones that can tip the scale towards global adoption and towards prices potentially rocketing in the next decade.
Well, I think that when you look at regulation, you have to see it kind of in a, let's say, this axis where you have regulation here and innovation here. So we've been mostly on this area where regulation has been low and innovation has been extremely high, and that's why we've seen some crazy experiments with the ICOs, the tornado cash and all of that, and now we're slowly moving up, and that's a good thing. And I think that the countries that adopt and regulate move fast. They are going to attract capital, they're going to attract talent, because founders are going to move there. So
Depends on how you regulate.
sorry?
Depending on how they regulate.
Absolutely, and being crypto friendly, that's going to attract. I'm based in the UAE, so over the last year and a half, because of all the licenses that they've done for exchanges, things like that, a lot of companies are moving, bringing talent, and when you have, there's not as much technology happening there, but there are so many incentives that are attracting the developers, the founders, and then the funds will also come, and it just grows the whole ecosystem. So I think that regulation is important in terms of gaining momentum right now as crypto develops.
It was very challenging for me to listen your perspective, me being a former regulator and having my expertise in adopting and creating European legislation. I was working in many dossiers in the past, and I have to tell you, when you are making a legislation, it's useful because the legislation is building and is creating trust to people to invest, and this will create more trust to people to invest in the crypto market and to have this mass adoption that we really want. In the same time, I have to tell you, from my own experience, a regulator doesn't have experience in every sector of the economic system. So it's very important to interact, to explain, to have many debates. So the approach should be from the crypto market to come and explain the regulators, which are, let's say, the details, the most important aspect that should be regulated, that should be let more flexible. So it has to be a permanent dialogue between the regulators and the industry. And I think this is essential. I have to answer you also to the question of having a global regulation. It will be impossible. I know I have 15 years of experience in this respect. It's ideal. We are living in a very globalized world, not only for the crypto market, which is really a very global one, and it's not a national or a regional one. It's necessary to have a global regulation, but unfortunately at this moment, in the way that we have the structures of power and the systems, it's impossible. But it can be a separated regulation at European, US level, and after that some bilateral agreements that will allow to have a more global vision regarding the regulation. But yes, it's necessary to finalize. It's necessary to have a regulation. It's necessary to have a flexible and friendly regulation. And in the same time, it's necessary the permanent cooperation and dialogue between the legislators, the regulators, and the industry.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, I hear from people that are outside of crypto after they hear about FTX and then all the domino effect that happened, all the other banks that collapsed after that. They're like, isn't that a scam? And they don't really understand. And speaking of, I think there's only a handful of US lawmakers that even understand blockchain, crypto, its potential. So I think that's one of the things that's holding regulation back in the US. Now I want to make sure we have 5 minutes for questions, so think about questions. And while you're doing that, one final question for the panel. I do hear from a lot of the companies that I talk to that this is the time they're building. They're working on the tech, they're building projects, and not worrying about the price of crypto right now. What kind of building are you seeing going on with your contacts in this industry? Okay, we'll start at the end and come down this way.
Sure. So for us at Binance, is a moment where we interact with startups the most in the last few years. So we're starting to build bigger ecosystems and trying to launch new learning initiatives with other startups, with governments as well. And it's a good moment to prepare mass adoption.
Yeah.